My name is Daniel Pruitt. In October 2011, I was 26 years old and working as a civil engineer in Little Rock. My parents had been divorced since I was 14, and I saw my father maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Thanksgiving, sometimes a summer camping trip, and occasionally a long weekend in the fall when the Ouachita foliage was worth making the drive for. He lived in a small house about 8 miles from the Talamina Scenic Drive entrance near Mena, Arkansas. The kind of place with a wood stove and a hand-drawn topographic map tacked above the kitchen table. That October, I'd driven out specifically because he'd asked me to. He'd called me the first week of the month, which was unusual. He wasn't a phone person, and said he had something he wanted to show me. He wouldn't say more than that on the phone. He said it would make more sense in person, and that I should come before the weather turned. I arrived on a Thursday evening, October 13th. He seemed fine when I got there. A little quieter than usual, maybe, but I chalked that up to the time of year. He'd always gotten introspective in autumn. We had dinner. He showed me a trail camera he'd set up on his own property where a fox had been denning under his back porch, and he told me he'd been taking notes on something he'd been observing in the park for the past 6 weeks. He used that word specifically, observing. He didn't elaborate that night. He said we'd talk more in the morning, after his patrol. He left the house at 5:47 a.m. on October 14th. I know the time because the kitchen clock was digital and loud, and I heard it when he closed the back door. His shift started at 6. He was working the Eastern District that day, a section of trail and fire road that runs through the Kiamichi Mountains, roughly the area between Winding Stair Mountain and the Holson Valley Road corridor. It's remote. Not the most remote section of the park, but remote enough that cell service is spotty and rangers rely primarily on two-way radio to check in. He was supposed to check in at noon and again at 3 p.m. Standard procedure. At 12:04 p.m., he radioed in. His supervising dispatcher that day was a woman named Carol Hensley, who'd worked the Ouachita District Office for 11 years. She told investigators that the noon check-in was normal. He gave his position. Fire Road FR 149, approximately 2 miles south of the Holson Valley trailhead, confirmed no incidents, and signed off. She described his voice as calm and professional. Nothing unusual. The 3 p.m. check-in never came. They tried to raise him at 3 o'clock, 3:15, and 3:30. Nothing. That wasn't entirely unprecedented. Radio dead zones exist throughout the Eastern District, but protocol required a physical check if contact wasn't re-established within 90 minutes. By 4:45, a second ranger was dispatched to his last known position. I was at the house when the district office called at 5:30. They told me they were having trouble reaching him and that a ranger was in the field looking for his truck. They used the word precautionary. They told me not to worry yet. I wasn't worried yet. I knew the park. I knew dead zones happened. At 6:17 p.m., they found his truck. It was parked on a turnout off FR 149, engine off, doors locked. His personal water bottle was on the passenger seat. His lunch bag, unopened, was on the floor. His trail notebook, the one he always carried, was on the dashboard. He wasn't there. The search started formally at first light on October 15th. I was kept updated but asked to stay off the trails. SAR teams covered the area around his truck in expanding grids. Dogs were brought in. A helicopter did aerial sweeps on the 15th and 16th. The terrain in that section is rugged. Dense hardwood canopy, creek drainages that cut deep and run fast after rain, and they didn't find anything. No signs of a fall. No equipment. No indication that he'd gone anywhere in particular. On the third day, they found one boot print in the mud near a drainage creek about half a mile southeast of his truck. One print, heading northeast, and then nothing. Investigators said the ground was too rocky past that point to hold impressions. They searched for 11 days. They never found him. The recording came out during the investigation, and this is the part one need you to understand I'm not embellishing. Ouachita National Forest, like most federal lands, records all radio transmissions on a rolling basis. At 2:31 p.m. on October 14th, 90 minutes before the missed check-in, there was a transmission on my father's assigned frequency. It lasted approximately 40 seconds. The transmission was not logged by the dispatcher. Carol Hensley, who was on duty, said she did not hear it come through. The equipment recorded it, but it didn't register on the active channel display in the way a normal transmission would. The technical explanation offered during the investigation was a possible ghost signal, a term used for transmissions that get recorded by monitoring equipment without fully clearing the radio's threshold for live broadcast. In other words, they're saying he may have been transmitting from too far away, or with too weak a signal, for it to come through properly. I've been told that. I still don't know if I believe it. The audio quality on the recording is poor. There's static throughout. But my father's voice is recognizable. I've listened to it enough times that I'm certain it's him, and the investigators confirmed the voice matched his known recordings from prior transmissions. Here is what you can make out. He begins by saying his call sign and position, though the position is partially obscured by static. The word Holson is audible. Then he says something that sounds like trail is wrong or possibly trail is gone. I've had audio analysts listen to it, and the consensus is that it's one of those two phrases, though they can't agree on which. Then there are approximately 8 seconds of silence, or near silence. There's a low ambient sound that some people describe as wind and others describe as something else, and I'm not going to characterize it because I honestly cannot tell. After the silence, he speaks again. His voice is lower and faster than his usual radio cadence. He says, clearly, there's someone else out here and I don't think they want to be found. Then, after another brief pause, tell Danny I looked. And then the transmission ends. I have theories. I've had 12 years to develop them, and I've cycled through most of the available options. There are people who camp illegally in the Eastern District, off-grid types who don't want contact with rangers. There's documented history in that corridor. Not widely known, but documentable. Of individuals using the forest for activities that wouldn't survive scrutiny. There have been drug-related seizures in the Holson Valley area. There are cases on record of rangers being targeted. The phrase "I looked" has been interpreted a dozen ways. Some people think it's a reassurance, a father telling his son he tried. Some people think it's connected to whatever he'd been observing for the past 6 weeks. The notes he never showed me, that weren't in the trail notebook found in his truck. We never found the field notebook he kept at home. The one with the observations. I've been back to Mena twice since 2011, both times for administrative reasons. I haven't been back to the Eastern District. Carol Hensley retired in 2014. I spoke to her once, in 2016, and she told me she thought about the transmission most days. She also told me that in her 11 years, she had never seen a ghost signal recorded on that equipment. She said the technical explanation was offered quickly, and she was never convinced it was right. My father was a practical man. He did not spook easily. He'd worked that forest for 14 years and he knew every drainage and every fire road in his district. When he said the trail was wrong, he meant something specific. I don't know what he found out there. I don't know who he found. I'm still waiting for someone to tell me what he meant when he said he looked, and what, exactly, he was looking for. If you work in the Ouachita Eastern District, or if you were in that area in fall 2011 and saw something, I'd like to hear from you. Not because I think there are answers anymore, but because I'd like to know that someone, somewhere, remembers that he was there. He deserves to be remembered.